Hello, Amanda. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me.
This is a delight. I know it is the end of your day. You've had a long day. We're actually going to chat a little bit about what you've been doing today, but I want to start with the title of this episode, which is Becoming a Different Leader. And there are a lot of different facets to this, which we are going to touch on. But Amanda, let's just start because you mentioned that to me when we were talking and prepping for this episode. So, what does it mean to you to become a different leader?
So, I think being in financial services profession, it's it feels like it's different all the time. As much as you've been doing what you've been doing for a long time, sometimes you feel like you're always doing something different. And I think when I allow myself to experience that within my work, I then realize it means I have to always keep up. It means I have to always be agile. That's not necessarily something that comes naturally, probably to most of us. And I think just being intentional about being a future leader who's able to do that and has equipped themselves, with the necessary resources to be able to do all of that. So for me, that's exactly what it means to become a different leader, to be something, or rather somebody within financial services or any other place where I'll ever work, or even in my own business, where I've adopted different ways of showing up, different ways of providing guidance, different ways of being a better version of myself personally, and even a better version of myself within my work.
Yeah, so we're going to dive into a lot of those things. And you mentioned at the beginning, keeping up with everything. There's so much to keep up with. And when you just think on the leadership side, it's keeping up with how do you train people? How do you support people? How do you develop and
Mm.
build them up? How do you hire the right talent to begin with? Say nothing of keeping up with regulations and technology and practice management. So, are there specific areas where you focus more on making sure that you are keeping up with the latest developments in order to be that different leader?
Firstly, in financial services, if the first thing you don't respond to is regulation, then I think you should be very worried. Because for me personally, that's already one of the very big concerns. And I think sometimes things don't change as regularly as we think they do in terms of regulatory stuff, because you get given the time to adjust, you get given the time to apply things differently to suit, upcoming acts or that kind of thing. But I think a lot of the times regulatory changes plays a big factor in the work that I do. It allows you to be able to have the right conversations with people, keeping in mind exactly what has changed, what is changing, what is possibly going to be changing in the near future, that not necessarily everybody always has the time to focus a lot on. So a lot of people tend to then look up to you or look up to the businesses that support them to ensure that we are introducing those things to them and we are providing the right guidance in terms of how are all these things going to impact you, for example, as a financial planner, within your financial planning practice, as well as your customers.
Yeah, and you
So
talked in
yeah,
there earlier about
so
how agile. So that's got to be part of it, right? When you think, okay, new
definitely.
regulation coming, and as a leader, I have to help people. So you yourself are agile, but how do you then help advisors be agile?
Again, this for me, what you're asking speaks to being intentional about wanting to be a part of the change, eh, or at least a person that provides the guidance within the change. I think that's one of the things that COVID has definitely taught us. So when I speak of the fact that regulation is one of the things that comes top of mind for me, I don't even think that's the only thing. Technology definitely comes to mind. Digital definitely comes to mind. That's not necessarily my area of expertise, but I ensure that I keep an open mind to it, because the people you then engage with at work and the people you engage with that depend on your work or on the business within which you work actually would like to hear things about digital. So like I said, that's not necessarily my area of expertise, but I think it's so important to be able to speak that language. It's important to ensure that the same way that advisors will generally tend to say to their clients or customers, you don't have to always keep up with the Joneses. That's exactly the same thing I would say to them. You don't have to keep up with the Joneses. You don't have to adopt every single digital strategy out there, but you have to try and find what works for you. And I think sometimes it's up to us to ensure we are aware of a lot more so we can introduce some of these different things to different people based on their different needs and their different practices, and try and provide that guidance in terms of this is possibly the route that you should take.
Yeah, and just to give a little more context of where you're coming from a leadership perspective, can you just share a bit more about your role and who you are that leader to?
I'm the custodian of the IFA Association within Old Mutual, and that's really all about independent financial advisors, and something I really, really love to do. I might not engage with them as often as I'd love to, but I am quite involved as well with the different first line managers in the business that support these independent financial advisors. So hence my role, in working with financial advisors. I really try to make the time to sometimes even engage with them just personally, one-on-one, just do a quick, check-in phone call and just find out what's happening, what they're looking for, share the agenda for the next couple of months and see if it's in line with what they think they're looking to get out of the association. So a lot of my work is on that. A lot of my work as well is around business transformation, which really sits very closely to practice management, relationship management, wealth management, obviously within financial advisor space. But because we have equipped our first line managers, I ensure the sustainability of business transformation around these topics of practice management, relationship management, wealth management, for them to really feel comfortable to have these kind of conversations with their independent financial advisors so they can help them get their practices to the next level.
Yeah, and just for those outside of South Africa, just give a quick synopsis of what Old Mutual is for people that aren't familiar with the organization.
Yeah, amongst many things.
Yeah, so Old Mutual it's a very big organization in South Africa. So for people outside of South Africa, it's not a small boutique. It's a very
No,
large
it's
financial.
not. No, it's one of the largest financial services
Yes.
companies in South Africa. Definitely, definitely. And I think, I mean, just the thought of what you're saying, I'm thinking, oh my goodness. Sometimes I can only imagine how much digital transformation is trying to happen at every single business unit for such a big ship like that, with what, probably close to 30,000 employees. So there's a lot happening, but I mean, you're obviously trying to focus on what you need to do. But I think it's always important to align as well at times, because when you talk about digital, I think integration also becomes a very important thing, because what you're trying to do is ensure that how you service your customers also kind of feels seamless, even possibly across the different business units. So it definitely is quite a large organization. But I mean, we do a whole lot of different things. You get people who focus on corporate. I'm, like I said, I'm a lot more focused on the independent financial advisors, which is the business unit called broker distribution. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned business transformation. And that's another one of those terms that I think as we move around the world and even within certain countries, that can mean a couple of different things. So, what do you mean when you say business transformation?
I think in our world, it's really about equipping and becoming a different partner in a financial advisor's world, because it's really all about introducing certain concepts, principles, strategies, like I said earlier, that help them elevate their customer experience, help them elevate their practice management, help them elevate their wealth management and relationship management. I think, relationship management within the profession it's just a norm. I hear that and I'm thinking CRM tools, but there's so much more to that than just it being a CRM tool. It can do so many different things for you. And I think sometimes it's important to help advisors really dive into what all of these different tools can really do for them, because it's more than that, just a relationship management thing. It's partly practice management, it's partly wealth management, it's partly customer experience, it's partly servicing. So that's exactly what business transformation is in our world, in the sense that we really try to partner up with advisors and their practices and take them through this as a journey, definitely a long-term journey, because we want them to try and implement some of these things as well.
Yeah, so it's kind of that continually evolving and continually innovating in your business to going back to
Definitely.
keeping up with the latest and being agile
Exactly.
and making sure
Exactly.
that you're not staying stagnant in your business. And another way we can kind of think about business transformation in some instances is transforming who is in the business and who's represented
Mm-hmm.
there. And that's a challenge everywhere in the world. And that's a challenge in South Africa. I've been there many times
Mm-hmm.
and attended spoken at a number of conferences. And still, when I look out at the wonderful big audiences, most advisors in South Africa are still white men, even though that's actually a
Mm-hmm.
much smaller minority part of the South African
Of the
population. Even there,
population, exactly.
yeah.
It's
So
very
transforming
true.
who's in it. So Amanda, you've got some interesting perspectives of how you kind of help to continually bring this up and gently point it out from a leadership
Hmm.
perspective.
Well, I hope I always gently bring it up. And I think sometimes, like I really, really actually hope that I do get that right all the time, because it's very important for me. I think it's important because not everybody sees things the way that you do, and not everybody is ready to actually transform as much as they might possibly need to. And this can sometimes go for individuals and businesses and advisors and their customers, like everybody. And I think it's important that sometimes you almost come up with solutions by trying to implement certain things, with a very soft tone, so that people can rather see what it is that you're trying to do than for you to kind of have this thing over their heads in terms of, but this needs to be implemented, or have you seen the numbers aren't looking good when it comes to people of color, or whatever it is. I mean, that's something that's quite important for me. And I think hence Didi and I started the, lean in circle for women of color in financial planning. So that's us being part of the solution. That's us, giving women of color within financial planning a voice. That's us ensuring that all the right information also gets to them, and that they can stand up and they can understand what the profession has to offer, and that there's different opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, that approach of sort of be the change you want to see. I like that. So do you have an example of something that you've done along those lines where it's, hey, let's actually just do it and be that example?
Yeah, so I think like the lean in circle is definitely one of those things. We have our first cohort with probably almost 22 people, and most of these ladies are CFP. Our second group, we're launching the cohort with almost 30 people in August. We're probably going to have the last cohort at the start of next year. The lean in circle approach that we've adopted, it's really about opening up a platform where women can feel comfortable to talk to each other. We can feel comfortable to talk about the sensitive topics that aren't always easily addressed, or they easily come up around a boardroom table, or around a Zoom call with managers, or whatever the case may be. And so that's definitely been one of the things. And I think sometimes it's just pointing out certain things that are still lacking, that maybe sometimes people think something is being done about it, but then months go by and you're like, guys, let's not forget that other thing we're trying to do, kind of a thing. And I think it's important, you don't necessarily want to be the transformation police when it comes to black and white or people of color or the white men that you were talking about, in terms of, it's still them, which are the majority, but rather to just keep nudging, you know. I think it's
Yeah.
important to do that.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that digital is not actually your area of expertise, but would you like to share what you have started this week and how you are continuing to make sure that you are keeping up with everything and staying at the forefront?
So considering I've had almost a full day of work and then 5.5 hours of lectures, I should actually be in pajamas right now, I'm telling you. So it really, really has been a full day. But yeah, be that as it may be, I think, like you were saying earlier, that's really not my area of expertise. But I've also noticed that it's an area that is very crucial. It's an area that is not going anywhere. It's an area that is changing faster than we can even imagine. And if you can't try to keep up even a slight pace of it, then you'll probably be left behind. Um, So I've recently, which was actually last night, I started classes and I'm doing my exec master's program in Spain at IE University, and specializing in digital transformation and innovation leadership. It is a bit all about tech and digital and transformation and digitization and leadership at the same time. They actually call it the MBA with the digital flavor of
Focus.
some sort,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, something like that. And I think the reason I took that up was firstly to challenge myself. I think it was to allow myself to be sensitive to how broad digital actually is, that it doesn't stop just at what you see, what you work with on a daily basis, or what people around you work with on a daily basis. There's a lot more things happening out there. There's bigger and better things happening out there. And I'm just trying to get a little piece of it and see how all of that can equip me personally, and I think equip me in my work.
Yeah, and Amanda, that's a really
So
cool
that's
thing.
going
The
to be
fact
the
that you're like
next 14 months for me.
yeah, which is huge, but you're not shying away from it, and that's a great example of your leadership perspective, and the fact that you want to come at it from the angle of, hey, I want to use this to also help me be sensitive to other people, and
Mm,
realizing where people
mm,
might be resistant to change or worried about change, or honestly just too exhausted to even bother to change because there's so much going on.
exactly.
So
Mm.
good for you doing that. So this is a lot that you've got going on. You mentioned a full day of work and then 5.5 hours of lecture. Thank you for also then being here with us. But one
No
thing that I love
problem.
is that you still make time for you. So how do you set those boundaries?
Um, sure. That's a difficult question, but something I really, really focus on. Um, I think it's only when I had a conversation with you, earlier last week, I was like, I actually really do set boundaries. I often find, because of, my work and then board membering at the FPI, and then sometimes doing webinars and a bit of TV, a bit of radio, authoring my own books together with Nelly on financial literacy and all of these things. A lot of people tend to be like, what are you doing this weekend? Are you busy? What are you doing? I'm like, I did nothing. They're like, ah,
Yeah.
man, don't lie. I'm like, I absolutely did nothing. And that's always important for me. And I think it's something I've learned to do over the years, to just try and actually do nothing during the weekend. I think family time is important. I love making time for my 8-year-old boy. He's huge, in soccer, and he loves golf. And I just want to sometimes be able to be a part of that as much as I possibly can. So it is important for me to make me time. And a lot of the time, me time for me means doing absolutely nothing. Most weekends, I'm sitting at home, literally in my pajamas, the TV is watching me. Half of the time, I'm not even concentrating. And I think what I find about that is that it allows me to be a lot more creative, that sometimes I don't realize how creative I am in that moment. And that
Yep.
when the week starts, I've already thought about so many things and I'm not trying to work, but somehow because I'm just having an open mind, I'm relaxed, I'm not in front of a computer or a piece of paper, I tend to get a lot more things prepared in my head, and therefore I'm able to try and implement as much as possible.
Yeah, it's just fascinating how productive doing nothing is, isn't it?
Exactly. I find it absolutely productive. I really, really do.
Yeah. So for people out there, I mean,
Yeah.
we hear, and I was mentioning to you just before we went live that I keep seeing LinkedIn posts of people talking about, hey, when you join the profession or whatever, you got to work hard and put in the hours and grind away and 100-hour work weeks. And I was like, I don't actually believe that. It's so important to make sure
Mm,
that even in the beginning, we are taking
mm,
care of ourselves first and we're making sure that we
mm.
have that mental space to be creative and to get our exercise and eat well and sleep and all that stuff. It's not all
Yeah.
work all the time. You've shown that you
Is that not
can
the
have a
reason? Is that not the reason then people say if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life? A part of me honestly believes that. I really, really do. And maybe that's partly the reason you get creative because you don't feel like you're working, you know?
yeah. Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned in there your passion for financial literacy and writing some books. So on top of everything else, Amanda, chat with us about what you've done there because you've got a lot going on in that space as well.
I do, and I really wish I had a bit more time for it. I don't always have the time for it, but I definitely try to make the time for it. I think for me, it's just being part of the solution. At the end of the day, I can't deny the fact that having studied financial planning and having worked as a financial planner and having had the opportunity to stand in front of hundreds of people over different seminars where you go out to different corporates and you do workshops on different topics of financial literacy. I think that equipped me with enough information and I think enough skills to understand that the problem is a lot bigger, the problem is a lot deeper if more of us don't come together, excuse me, and create the right solutions for people and solutions that people will relate to, then
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm giving back. So for me, it's a part of me giving back to the problem in South Africa, which is really big. I think post COVID, I know we're still in COVID, but I think that situation has worsened in the sense that people are really saving less. People were already saving less, but people are saving less. People are getting into more debt. People don't understand how to clean up their budgets. People don't understand how to find smart ways of rechanneling the little bit of money that they actually have into the right channels so they can create that future financial freedom for themselves. And I just felt it's necessary to be a part of that. I'll never be, a full-time financial literacy facilitator or anything like that. But I think putting together the books and the board games, and we're slowly starting to digitize some of these things, at least I've got a solution that can kind of like take itself out there and really help people.
Yeah, which again is being the example, right? You see something needs to happen, so you're like, "All right, well, I'm going to go create it." So you've got a book for adults, a journal, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And a
yeah.
book for kids, and then the board game, is that for the whole family?
Yes, it is for the whole family. Definitely is. Yeah.
So you're creating solutions for all of it.
For everyone, really, really for everyone. I think sometimes we concentrate on the adults and we forget that the adults we're trying to help aren't necessarily equipped with the right skill to learn to have those very conversations with their children. So if we don't do something about that as well, then that generational curse is probably
Yeah.
never going to change. You're going to keep attending to each generation every time. And I think if we can teach the adults and introduce something that they can, give to their children. At the same time, introduce something they can have fun together learning. I think it enhances the conversation, it builds the interest, it makes it fun, and I think it keeps that education going.
Yeah. I love the focus on making it fun because it's not always the most exciting thing, but yes, we can
It's
get
not.
creative and make learning about
It's
money
not.
quite fun. Think about Monopoly. That was one of my favorite games growing up. Honestly, I don't think I at all realized the real world application. I wish I would have paid a little more attention to that, but it was still a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's very important. I mean, I really can't wait for the day, and I know it's going to happen someday. Like I said, I don't have enough time for it, but I definitely still trying to make as much time for it as I possibly can. And I really can't wait for the day that our work, especially the children's work, is starting to be integrated into the government schools because I think it's so necessary. I've looked at my son's different life skills books from grade 1 to grade 2 to grade 3. You can't tell me you're teaching my child about money when you're just teaching them how to differentiate between 10 rands, like a dollar and a $5. That's not money management. That's identifying a note or identifying a coin, and them understanding they must ask for change at the shop. That's maths. It's not
Yeah.
financial literacy. And I think those things are very important to start the kids at a very young age.
Oh, hugely important. Yeah, I was at the store the other day. Where was I? I was walking around at a farmer's market actually, and this woman was with her little kid, and her little kid was deciding to buy something, and the woman at the stand was like, take the money. And the mom was having a conversation. She's like, well, she's just now learning about money. She needs to decide, does she want to
Hmm.
spend all of her money on this one thing, or
Opportunity
does she
cost.
walking? We both found and we are like, yes, that was super
Yeah,
cool.
that's good. That's good. That's
That's
really,
great.
really good. So our schools are
Awesome.
not teaching that. They're not introducing that behavior. The focus is definitely on identification and maths, as opposed to, you know, learning the right skills for managing
Yeah.
money and learning that you work to earn the money, learning that you save a portion of your money, learning that you spend smartly, learning that you spend on your needs. You can take care of your wants. And we literally talk about all of those different things. And I think it's very important that every child understands that,
Yep. And as you said, every adult.
every adult as well.
Yeah. Amazing. Amanda, thank you so much. I would love to have you back on after you've completed this 14-month executive masters to see what your main takeaways are. Because you mentioned, the expanse of digital transformation is so much bigger than we think about. And when we focus only in financial
Definitely.
service, that's just a tiny piece. And there's so much
Mm.
more happening. So I'd love to hear from you on that
We'll
and how
definitely
everything developed
we'll
with
definitely do
financial
that.
literacy. Yeah. Any
Yeah, we'll
final
definitely
thoughts
do
about
that.
kind of the future of the profession, where things are headed?
I think where things are headed is that every advisor from time to time will feel like they're getting left behind. And I think, especially the advisors who think they're not changing fast enough, they tend to look at everybody else that they think is changing fast enough. And I think sometimes applying the small changes is very important and celebrating implementing those small changes in your business because they actually do add up and they become a big thing. So I think that's definitely the one thing that I can leave everybody with to say, don't try to fit in with the Joneses. Don't try to adopt every single digital strategy out there. Some of the strategies are not for you. They're not for your business. They're not for your customers. So take what you can, take what you need, implement it, and celebrate those small wins.
Yeah. Fantastic way to end. Thank you, Amanda, and thank you to
Thank
Maloko
you.
and Tracy, and we've got Francois in there, and you've got
I
lots of great
see.
comments coming in there, Amanda. So, on behalf of
Uh,
everyone, thank you again. And you can now go get in your PJs. I know it's very cold there, so
and
go
finish
warm
my
up.
cold coffee. I'm
Wonderful.
definitely
Thank
going
you.
to get in my PJs and pretend to be watching TV and hopefully fall
Yes.
asleep very soon.
Perfect.
Cool. Thank you so much, Kate, and thank you